I looked up and there was a buck rubbing his antlers on a tree in this old skid trail, and I shot him right between the shoulder blades.
How's it going? So I guess we're gonna tell a few deer stories.
Yeah.
So one I've been wanting to, because I grew up listening to all kinds of deer stories, because you deer hunted with a pretty serious group of guys.
Yeah, the guys. Yeah,
pretty serious deer hunters.
Yeah, the guys. But you know, Paul,
and they were all really good.
Well, we started out. The guys that I hunted with, and myself included, we didn't have a lot of.
You guys were all self-taught.
Right. My dad took me, but my dad wasn't a deer hunter. He'd go
never
out.
Shot a deer.
He never shot a deer. He'd take me out, and I can remember walking down the tote road, and we would see tracks everywhere back in the '60s and stuff, and there'd be deer tracks everywhere. And he wasn't one to, we'd go for a walk and mid-morning, and then get back for lunch and have lunch and a nap, and then maybe go for a walk in the afternoon, and that was the extent. And then it was always on a road or whatever. We didn't
go out in the woods.
We didn't go in the woods, and we couldn't go in the woods very far because all we had was a car.
Yep.
My father didn't have a four-wheel drive; he had a car.
Four-wheel drives were not.
They were not common.
Everyone had
You're absolutely right.
Big cars.
And accessibility didn't exist like it did. There was no roads.
No, if there's just one road going into a huge territory.
So I mean, you had to walk wherever you wanted to go in the woods. But I'm thankful that he took me. He took me anyway, and I can remember as just a little boy, I wanted to see a deer. Shooting a deer was like a magical dream that I just wanted to see a deer. I don't ever remember hunting with my father and ever seeing a deer. It was funny because there were a lot of deer around.
Yeah, a lot more than.
There was a lot of deer.
That was kind of the heyday of deer hunting in northern Maine then.
So the boys that I hunted with, their father didn't hunt at all. Everything that we learned, we pretty much learned on our own from trial and error. And
I remember Dale always saying at deer camp, Father used to say, I don't know why you guys want to go to that drafty old camp and starve to death. As everyone can't sleep because it's so friggin' hot in there. And you can't sleep because you've overindulged that night. He's like, you want to go to that drafty old camp and starve to death.
It's funny too, you look back and you say, man, if I had known then what I know now, we could have been some seriously good deer hunters, but we didn't. You don't know what you don't know.
No, figure it out.
We figured it out as we went along.
So let's talk about the biggest buck you ever shot.
Yeah, that was,
That was a 10-pointer.
Yeah.
240.
That weighed 200. I shot that on Monday morning of Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
And we didn't weigh that until Sunday, the following Sunday after Thanksgiving. So it had hung basically a full week, and it dressed out at 240. And you get it. Not only did it hang for a week, but you have it's the end of the November.
Imagine the beginning of November.
Yeah, he would have been. He was.
That was probably the prettiest deer.
Yeah.
That I've ever
Double
seen.
throat pack.
To this day, when I look at pictures of that deer, it's perfectly symmetrical rack.
Yeah.
And it was just a big
10-pointer
deer.
Yeah. Made mastic. Yeah. He was
140 something inches.
147 or 48 inches there. Yeah.
Very little deductions on that.
Yeah. Pretty uniform. Pretty perfect rack and stuff.
So if I remember, I wasn't old enough to hunt then, so I didn't go to deer camp. I was, I think, 8 or 9 when you shot that.
Yeah, I can't remember the year, Paul. I've got it written down.
1990, I think it was.
Yeah, I can't remember the year.
That year, didn't you have a lot of snow early on in the year?
We did. What had happened was, at that time in my life, and I was busy, and I did not deer hunt at all until Thanksgiving week.
You just did 1 week a year.
I did 1 week a year. I didn't hunt Saturdays, any days off. I didn't hunt at all. Part of my reasoning was I didn't want to go up to deer camp, having shot a deer, and have to sit around for a week or whatever. I wanted to go up and I wanted to deer hunt Thanksgiving week. So.
And back then it was pretty well a guarantee that
If you worked hard, you were going to get a chance.
Yeah.
If you,
probably a couple chances.
Yeah.
Then.
So anyway, and I didn't go to where we usually hunt. We usually, like I say, when we were up there in that Allagash region, we traveled an hour to
back up. We bought a snow early.
Yes.
And then it melted down.
A lot of snow. It had melted down, so you could literally almost put your entire weight on it before it broke through. So it was, as far as tracking and stuff, it was gonna be tough.
Yep.
We had a lot of snow, and then a lot of warmth and rain on top of that.
Yep.
Like I say, that made a crust that you could almost put your entire weight on before you broke down through. Yeah, I did something totally different when we got to deer camp. One of the guys, Derek, had shot a deer, so I believe he was at camp. All the other guys went to our usual spot, which was an hour drive away, one way. I decided, and there was always deer right behind camp, and I decided I was going to go up over the knoll into a little valley that I knew it held some deer year after year, and I was going to go in there and try. So I basically walked out the camp driveway.
They had kind of a little trail, didn't they, going up the...
Yeah, that was what we call Caribou Hill there. I went up over and then went into this little valley, and I remember I came across a doe and a fawn. The doe would break through the crust. The fawn was walking right on top of the crust. I said, okay, and I don't know what my train of thought was then. I just thought, well, they were headed to my right, but I went on their back track. I don't think I went 100 feet, and I looked up, and there was a buck rubbing his antlers on a tree in this old skid trail, and I shot him right between the shoulder blades. He had his head down, rubbing the...
No kidding.
Yeah, and...
you would think you would never be able to get near a deer.
Yeah.
And that stuff.
I was so noisy. Like I said, that was just one of those things that will tell you, regardless of the conditions, that you go out because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It was as noisy as you could ever imagine it being, and I basically walked up to the deer, and he didn't even look at me. He had other things on his mind.
Did you know how big it was when you saw it?
No.
I
just saw a head of the rock, and he was rubbing a little sapling there in the old skid trail. And
what did you think when you walked up to it?
I thought, well, that's a big deer. That's a big deer.
That's a big deer.
So I walked back, I dressed him off, and I walked back to the camp, and Derek was at the camp, and he said, well, what are you doing back? I mean, it was like an hour. It was like...
So you hunted an hour that season?
The whole season, I hunted an hour. I told him, I said, I got a deer. So we went back, and we drug it up to the, what we call the shortcut road. That skid trail went up to the shortcut road. We drug him up there and took a bunch of pictures and stuff. And if you look, I was a young man, you look at the pictures there, I was like in shock, you know. I was I was in a state of shock, for crying out loud.
Well, and to show you how big the deer is, you're standing straight up, holding the head.
Yeah, just the neck and off the
yeah, that was a big deer. That week was a successful week.
Is that the week I think everybody shot a deer?
Yeah.
Well, there was 6 of us.
And that may have been the deer that Dean had shot. Is that the one that the second buck he tracked that day? I love that story. So that's another example. All the guys hunted hard. No one really worried about like how they're going to get back.
No. We would go.
You guys were driving into a spot and dropped them off.
We were going.
And he said, "Pick me up on the way back through."
We were going to, or they were going into that hour spot that was an hour away, and he obviously saw the tracks in the road, and I wasn't there, but I'm sure that's what happened. He saw the tracks, fresh tracks, and said, "I'm going right here. Drop me off, and you know,
pick me up.
Look for me. By. Look for me tonight." Yeah, you know.
So he shot a buck that day. He gets back out to the road.
Yeah.
To see the tail lights
headed towards camp.
Of the guys driving back towards camp.
Which was a long way.
Missed his ride.
It was many miles back to the camp.
And he ran the entire way back.
I think after hunting and tracking all day, he ran back to the camp. He didn't have a knife.
No, he didn't dress it out. That's right.
He didn't have a knife to get it out.
So he ran back to camp to get a knife.
Yeah. Dean was he was in really good shape, and he was a good hunter.
Yeah.
He was a determined person, and he was a very good hunter.
And his son's a good hunter. So that year you guys all shot deer.
Yeah.
Like Dean's was nice. I don't know how much it weighed, if you remember.
It was a 2.5-year-old buck. It wasn't,
okay.
It wasn't, I think the one he was tracking earlier in the day that the Quebecer shot, I think that was a big buck. I think that was a far bigger buck than what he ended up shooting. But certainly I would have been happy with the deer he shot. We all would have been. Anybody in our group would have been happy with that deer.
So yeah, so 10-pointer, hung for a week.
Yeah, 240 pounds.
240 pounds.
Yeah.
And like I said, it was beautiful, nice double throat patch.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful buck.
Yeah.
So you never know what can happen.
No.
Crunchy snow.
No, that's a good example of that.
Stuff.
And it's also a good example, you know, we put in a long season, put in a lot of hours this year and didn't get a deer, and I basically hunted 1 hour that year.
Hal Blood's right. He basically says it's 2 points connecting.
It is.
It just kind of happens.
But even then, when the 2 points connect,
you gotta be in the right spot.
Things have to go right.
That's right. Your gun has to go off.
Your gun has to go off, and yeah, things have to. Things
you got to be able to hit something.
You know, we had 2 points connecting a couple times this year, and things didn't. That deer that was walking up the deer trail towards me, I wasn't. You know, I should have seen it. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't do my job. He saw me before I saw him, and that was the end of that.
Hope you enjoyed that story.
Yeah,
that was a big deer. I guess until next time.
Get outside.
Outside is good for the soul.
Yeah.